I'd just like to say that Carole and I are absolutely delighted by today's announcement.
Well, I'm not sure what I'm able to bring. It's what all these very brave ladies tell me. It's seeing is believing.
I'd just like to say that Carole and I are absolutely delighted by today's announcement. Well, I'm not sure what I'm able to bring. It's what all these very brave ladies tell me. It's seeing is believing. In a royal world where every move is calculated and every word carefully chosen, no one expected this, especially not Queen Camilla. Carole Middleton, mother of Princess Kate and once considered a quiet presence in royal affairs. Let's move on to Princess Kate's mom, otherwise known as Super Granny. Carole Middleton is featured in this week's issue of People magazine, has made a bold and deeply personal decision that's sending shockwaves through the palace. Insiders say Queen Camilla was left completely blindsided, brought to tears by what unfolded behind closed doors. What exactly could Carole have possibly done to cause such an emotional reaction? Let's find out. Carole Middleton and Queen Camilla behind palace doors. Before the grand fanfare of Prince William and Kate Middleton's royal wedding in April 2011, it was Prince William and Catherine Middleton's big day, April the 29th, 2011. All seemed well between their families. Carole Middleton and Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall at the time, smiled politely in public, exchanging greetings and posing side by side in family photographs. But behind the scenes, tensions had already begun to simmer. Subtle, unspoken, yet impossible to ignore. Carole Middleton, once a flight attendant, the daughter of a builder and retail worker. Carole went straight into the workforce working for retailer John Lewis and later as a flight attendant, had carved out a life of comfort and success through sheer determination. Alongside her husband, Michael, she built Party Pieces, a thriving party supply business that helped send their 3 children to some of the UK's top schools. She was proud of the life they had created, one shaped by effort, not entitlement, but inside Buckingham Palace, tradition ran deep, and not everyone looked kindly upon her middle-class background or her growing influence. As Kate and William's relationship became more serious, Carole noticed small but sharp changes in how she was treated at royal gatherings. While some extended warmth, others seemed to deliberately overlook her, offering cold shoulders and sidelong glances. She would later describe the experience as being treated like she wasn't even there, a message that needed no words. It was a stark contrast to Camilla, who had been born into the aristocracy and fit seamlessly into the royal mold. She understood the unwritten codes of rank and hierarchy and reportedly spoke often in private about the significance of lineage and knowing one's place. Tensions deepened during the lead-up to the royal wedding. Carole hoped to add personal touches to the grand occasion. Subtle, meaningful gestures from the Middleton side that reflected their family's warmth and closeness. But many of her ideas were brushed aside without much conversation. Decisions about things as simple as flowers or the guest list were taken out of her hands, reinforcing the idea that her role was to smile, nod, and stay in the background. After the wedding, those tensions didn't fade. They grew quieter, but stronger. Carole began to notice her access to Kate changing. Though Kate continued to perform her royal duties with grace and poise in public, Kate Middleton is stepping up to her royal duties. The future queen has returned to her royal responsibilities. Carole could see the toll it was taking. Visits became less frequent. Private time together was often interrupted or rescheduled. Christmas, once a cherished family tradition, became a point of contention as royal protocol demanded Kate and William spend the holidays at Sandringham with the royal family. It was a difficult shift, not just for Carole, but for Kate too. She was now navigating 2 very different worlds, the structured, demanding realm of the monarchy, and the warm, grounded embrace of her family. Trying to keep both sides happy was wearing her thin. Then came the birth of Prince George in July 2013. As a devoted mother and experienced parent, Carole naturally wanted to be closely involved, but the palace had other plans. Royal nannies were selected, and strict schedules were enforced, leaving little room for the hands-on grandmother Carole hoped to be. Some believed Queen Camilla quietly supported these restrictions, an effort to keep the Middleton influence at bay. By the time Princess Charlotte was christened in July 2015 at the Church of St. Mary Magdalene in Sandringham, Britain's newest royal officially has a name. Princess Charlotte Elizabeth Diana of Cambridge was christened Sunday. The cracks had widened. Carole had planned a small private celebration following the official ceremony, something intimate and meaningful. But at the last minute, her plans were reportedly overridden by Camilla's office, causing confusion and disappointment. What was meant to be a tender family moment turned into yet another reminder that her presence in royal affairs was carefully controlled. And so, beneath the surface of royal smiles and stately appearances, a quiet rivalry was unfolding, one built not on public scandal, but on years of quiet rejection, unspoken judgments, and a struggle for space in Kate's increasingly royal life. But what did Carole do to send Camilla spiraling? And could this moment truly upend the royal family? Keep watching. The silent statement that shook the royals. The air at Princess Charlotte's 2015 christening had barely settled when Carole Middleton's quiet retreat began to take form. What had once seemed like a subtle effort to maintain harmony between two vastly different families, the self-made Middletons and the institutionally entrenched royals, was now being replaced with something far more deliberate. Carole, having endured years of being politely sidelined and systematically excluded, made a decision that would, over time, shift the very fabric of her family's relationship with the palace. Though she remained publicly poised, Carole began to distance herself from royal life in ways that were both graceful and strategically calculated. Insiders began to notice her absence from events where she once stood proudly by her daughter's side. Her decision, while quiet, carried the weight of defiance. It was not about rebellion. It was about reclaiming space in a world that had, for too long, treated her as an unwelcome guest. The years leading up to this decision had been taxing. From 2011, the year Kate married Prince William, Carole had been navigating a realm that was not just unfamiliar, but resistant. Royal traditions clashed with her own grounded, modern family values, and while she had never sought the spotlight, her presence became a subtle threat to the traditional order, a reminder that influence could be earned, not just inherited. By 2013, with the birth of Prince George, this quiet clash had grown sharper. Carole's expectation of being a hands-on grandmother was dashed by the rigid protocols surrounding the royal nursery. Royal nannies took precedence, and Carole's offers of help were often brushed aside. Scheduling visits became a complex negotiation, and her efforts to maintain normalcy for her daughter and grandchildren were constantly met with resistance. This wasn't just about class. It was about control. Queen Camilla, herself once an outsider, appeared to have embraced the very establishment that had once resisted her, once known as the other woman. Camilla is now the queen. Over the years, she reportedly became a strong voice for preserving tradition, encouraging strict adherence to royal customs, and in doing so, according to royal observers, she positioned herself in subtle opposition to Carole's influence. The result was an unspoken rivalry between the two women, both mothers, both fiercely protective, but from very different worlds. The tension reached new heights around Prince Charles's 70th birthday in November 2018. Prince Charles is ringing in his 70th birthday today, held at Buckingham Palace. The event brought together the sprawling royal family and their extended networks. The Middletons, as always, kept a dignified presence, but the tone of the evening reportedly shifted when Carole overheard a conversation between Camilla and a group of her longtime aristocratic friends. As they chatted about the changing face of Britain's elite, Camilla is said to have made a pointed remark about new money and the importance of heritage over financial success. While no names were mentioned, the implication was clear to those who understood the family dynamics at play. To Carole, it felt like a final, sharp reminder that no matter how hard she had worked, how carefully she had raised her daughter, or how gracefully she had navigated royal expectations, she would always be considered other. For Carole, that moment wasn't just humiliating, it was clarifying. What followed was not an outburst or public spectacle, but a quiet shift. She pulled back from royal appearances and ceased trying to insert herself into traditions where her presence was no longer welcomed. She stopped pushing for invitations, stopped offering suggestions that would inevitably be ignored. Instead, she focused on her own world, her business, her community, and most importantly, her family, in the way she could still access it, behind closed doors. However, Carole was an idol. According to several well-placed sources, she began keeping detailed notes of every interaction that reinforced her marginalization. Every time a visit with her grandchildren was canceled, every time a family plan was altered without her input, every time she was quietly excluded from a milestone in her grandchildren's lives. More intriguingly, through her broad network of business and social contacts, built during decades of entrepreneurial success, Carole began to learn things, not gossip, but details, financial decisions, property management choices, odd patterns of spending, things that, while not necessarily scandalous on their own, painted a broader picture of how influence and access were exercised within the palace. Some of these discoveries were minor, lavish expenses justified under ceremonial needs, sudden shifts in charity distributions, or overlapping interests between personal luxury and royal obligations. But in the hands of someone as discreet and organized as Carole Middleton, these bits of information became powerful. By early 2024, the quiet friction that had long existed between the Queen and Carole Middleton was becoming visible to the public eye. In March of that year, at Prince Louis's school concert in London, Royal watchers couldn't help but notice the atmosphere. Carole and Camilla, once photographed side by side, stood at opposite ends of the room. Not a glance, not a smile, not even the courteous exchange of greetings. Prince William, ever the peacekeeper, was seen circulating between the two women to ease the visible tension. But the distance between them was unmistakable. This event wasn't an isolated incident. It was the culmination of years of silent battles, unspoken judgments, and calculated distance. And yet, through it all, Carole had remained composed. She had never spoken publicly, never allowed herself to become a headline. She had taught her children the value of restraint and respect, and she had followed those lessons herself. Still, the emotional weight of her experiences was undeniable. Watching other royal grandparents, like Camilla's own grandchildren, be warmly included while she struggled to secure time with her daughter's children was a painful contrast. Despite Kate's best efforts to create balance, the pressures of duty continued to chip away at the bonds that once made her family feel whole. Since becoming a member of the royal family in 2011, the Duchess of Cambridge has become the patron of charities and organizations close to her heart. And while Carole never voiced her frustration publicly, her actions spoke volumes. Her slow withdrawal from palace life was not a retreat. It was a quiet protest, a refusal to be treated as anything less than an equal partner in the lives of her grandchildren. A stand not for status, but for respect. As 2024 unfolded, palace insiders noted an increasing frostiness in the Queen's behavior toward Carole. Royal staff, who once coordinated Middleton family logistics with grace and warmth, became tighter-lipped. Invitations were fewer. Interactions were more formal. Even Kate, who had long navigated the two worlds with remarkable poise, appeared increasingly torn, pulled between her royal role and the growing isolation of her own family. Behind the scenes, Carole's efforts continued, not to retaliate, but to document every slight, every shift, every quiet move that revealed more about how the palace wielded its power behind polished appearances. It wasn't just about personal pain anymore. For Carole, it was about something deeper, about legacy, about ensuring that her family's story would not be written solely by palace insiders. She had raised her daughter to be strong, compassionate, and poised under pressure. And now, as Kate stood at the heart of a monarchy constantly evolving, Carole was determined that the values she had instilled wouldn't be erased by titles or tradition. But what did Carole uncover that left Queen Camilla in deep tears? And who else is entangled in this? Keep watching to find out. The briefcase that broke the silence. Beneath the polished surface of palace protocol and carefully staged smiles, something deeper has begun to stir. What started as a mother's quiet concern now threatens to upend the delicate hierarchy inside Buckingham Palace. And at the center of it all, Carole Middleton. For over a decade, she's been the elegant in-law, the party planner, the picture of discretion. But on a cold morning, February 6th, 2025, Carole arrived at Buckingham Palace with no press, no aides, and a briefcase in hand. What followed, insiders say, wasn't a friendly chat, it was a reckoning. Sources close to the palace claim Carole's visit wasn't just emotional. It was strategic. Inside that leather briefcase, documents, real ones, financial records, timelines, names. There's been no official word on the contents, but whispers have swirled around off-the-record meetings in Switzerland. Bank transfers routed through shell companies, and a slow but deliberate effort to edge the Middletons out of the royal inner circle. What Carole brought forward wasn't simply about money. It was about influence. Over the past few years, subtle shifts had taken place. Missed invitations, family moments quietly excluded, royal roles reassigned with no explanation. Viewed separately, they seemed like nothing. But together, Carole saw a pattern, and she wasn't going to let it continue unchecked. And the alleged orchestrator of this shift? Queen Camilla. Those present at the meeting say Camilla's reaction was uncharacteristic. The Queen Consort, Queen Elizabeth, says she wants Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, to be known as Queen Consort. Usually composed, reportedly left the room visibly shaken. One insider even claimed she was seen in tears after reviewing part of the material Carole presented. The implication wasn't just financial, it was personal. A reminder that Carole, long underestimated, had been quietly observing and documenting everything. Within hours of Carole's visit, things inside the palace shifted. Meetings were rescheduled. Senior aides, some long retired, were called back in. Royal engagements were postponed without explanation. The palace issued no statement, but the silence only fueled speculation. Camilla disappeared from public view for 10 days. When she finally returned on March 11th for Commonwealth Day, her usual confidence was replaced with something quieter. Body language experts pointed to a more withdrawn presence. Fewer staff, briefer interactions. The queen consort had not been publicly shaken in this way before. Meanwhile, the staff inside the palace seemed divided. Those close to Catherine reportedly viewed Carole's actions with sympathy. Others, especially traditionalists loyal to Camilla, saw it as disruptive. But the mood had clearly shifted. There was caution in the halls of Buckingham Palace now. Whispers instead of conversations. Glances instead of greetings. Even Prince William, known for his steady composure, seemed caught in the middle. Insiders say he began consulting advisors who once worked with his mother, Princess Diana. The symbolism wasn't lost. Diana had once faced her own battles behind the palace walls. Now royal watchers wondered, was this Kate's Diana moment? The media picked up the scent. Why had royal appearances suddenly gone quiet? Why are the uncharacteristic gaps in schedules? Even businesses with royal warrants were said to be reviewing their affiliations. Nothing concrete had been proven, but the timing was too sharp to ignore. Carole Middleton made no public comment. She returned home without speaking to reporters, without posting a word. But her silence spoke volumes. She didn't need to raise her voice. She had already made her point. For the first time in a long time, the palace felt unsettled. Not crumbling, just uncertain. And that uncertainty, in a family built on control, might be the most dangerous shift of all. No one knows exactly what Carole plans next, but those watching closely understand one thing. She didn't just walk into Buckingham Palace that morning to raise concerns. She walked in to remind the monarchy that she was not just the mother of the future queen. She was a force of her own. And if the tearful exit of Queen Camilla is anything to go by, the message was received. Something else was quietly taking shape behind the scenes. A reckoning was coming, and this time, it wouldn't be contained to hushed corridors or buried beneath royal smiles. Now, all eyes turned to what happened next, behind closed doors, after Carole Middleton walked out. A crown without noise. If Carole Middleton's visit signaled the start of a reckoning within the palace walls, her daughter Catherine is now the quiet force guiding where it all leads. What began as whispers of division following Carole's unannounced February 6th meeting at the royal palace is now more undeniable, a visible, strategic shift in presence and power. And at the heart of that shift stands Kate. From the beginning, Catherine Middleton was never expected to fit in effortlessly. When she married Prince William in 2011, her arrival into royal life was met with polite smiles and private condescension. The aristocracy, with its centuries-old hierarchies and inherited status, saw her background as a novelty, even a threat. Her parents' successful party supply company, Party Pieces, may have been a modern success story, but to some, behind palace doors, it was little more than a reminder that she was, in their eyes, still common. But Kate never pushed back. She didn't need to. Over the years, she mastered palace protocols with the same quiet resolve that had earned her a history degree at the University of St. Andrews. While raising Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, she studied the ways of the royal family, especially the Queen's brand of silent power. She learned when to speak, how to act, and perhaps most importantly, when not to react. By the time March arrived in 2025, as Camilla quietly withdrew from public appearances following the fallout of Carole's visit, Kate stepped forward, but not with rebellion or drama. She didn't seize the spotlight. She simply occupied the space that had quietly opened up. Her engagements increased. Her voice began to carry more weight in planning meetings. And most notably, her office was relocated, moved from a tucked-away corner of the palace to a suite just steps from King Charles's working rooms. In palace terms, this was more than symbolic. It was structural. Influence in the monarchy is often measured in feet, not words, behind the scenes. William was said to rely more heavily on her insight. Palace aides observed a visible unity between the two. Their public outings now more polished, more strategic, more equal. William deferred to Kate on several key decisions in the spring. She, in turn, offered a perspective that bridged tradition with the world outside the palace gates. Even Kate's wardrobe played a role in this transformation. She began recycling old outfits, mixing high-street brands with couture. It was subtle, but intentional. A royal message of relatability in a cost-of-living crisis. Social media accounts under her influence shifted too. Stiff announcements gave way to softer moments. Candid photos of the children, behind-the-scenes glimpses, laughter between engagements. The royal image was being reshaped, not with rebellion, but with empathy. And now, in April 2025, the question isn't whether the Middletons belong. It's how far their influence will reach. Because power in the palace doesn't vanish. It simply moves. And right now, it's moving in their direction. But what do you think? Has Kate Middleton quietly become the true power behind the palace walls while no one was watching? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.